Alright, so we got this thing loaded up. I don't know what that car costs, but we might get pulled over pulling that car with this truck. We've got this Ferrari 458 challenge car in the shop, and man, this thing is beautiful. It looks like it's going 200 miles an hour just sitting here. And you know, if it's in our shop, it's got some damage somewhere. So let's have a look at the other side and I can show you what we're going to be repairing. We're going to be repairing this quarter panel, that rocker down there. There's a dent in the door, and we're going to be repairing this fender also. Now we're replacing the bumper cover because the customer has an updated cover right there. We're also going to be repairing this hood, mostly just the rock chips, but it has a small dent where this thing attaches here. So get all that repaired, and also this splitter. There's a piece missing right here, this carbon. We're going to be repairing that piece also. So let's get to work on this thing. We peeled off these shields here and it uncovered a little bit of damage that we didn't see before. This upright is actually torn and knocked over this way. So we got to get the fender off. We got to get this front bumper cover off. Before we take this off, let's open up this new bumper and get it out of the box and see what this upgraded bumper looks like. We got this updated bumper unwrapped. It's got a little bit of damage on it. It's got a little crack here. Little crack here. We'll have to repair those before we paint it. It's got a tab that's popped loose right here. You see, it's got to glue that tab back down. That little corner right there is bent up. We'll have to repair that. But other than that, it's not too bad. It's got some scrapes on the bottom. Looks like the main difference is this opening here. You look here, it's just a little bit different there. Just an updated version of the same bumper cover. And it almost looks like it's a little bit different in this contour right here. So it makes me think that this little piece here is not going to work. We might, if he wants to run those, we might have to buy different ones for this bumper. I'm not sure. We got to get these wheels off this thing. And they're held on with these unilugs here. So we had to get this big 80mm socket to get this unilug off. Now, it's not the correct socket because the correct socket pushes down these little levers as it's got a sleeve that slides over this and pushes down these levers as it loosens. But we'll be able to just loosen this a little bit, push these down with our fingers, and just thread it the rest of the way off by hand. Now, this is a 3/4 inch drive, and I did not have that, so we had to make a run to the AutoZone, get us a 3/4 inch drive breaker bar. I think it should work pretty good. So let's get these wheels off. Alright, so we've got those wheels off the car. Here's the rear one. Here's the front one. And will you look how big those brakes are. Wow. That thing is huge. I want to give you guys a reference point. This is a brake rotor off a Global MX-5 Cup car. See how much bigger that is? Wow. Even thicker. It's twice as thick as this rotor also. Now, something you guys ought to know when you're taking off any unilug or knockoff vehicle like this, the right-hand side of the car, they're left-hand threads, and on the left-hand side of the car, they're right-hand threads. So, got to make sure you're going in the right direction to get this thing tight or loose. So let's look at underneath here what kind of cool stuff we got. We got some shocks, control arms. We got to pull all this splash shield out in order to get this bumper off and this fender off. We're going to be pulling off this rocker here. Gotta fix that dent. Let's check out the back. Man, the brake rotors in the back are huge also. Look how thick that is. Jeez. Very cool suspension setup. We're going to be pulling this splash shield out also to give us access behind this quarter panel to help us get this the metal worked out. So let's start taking the rest of this thing apart. So now we're taking off this lower front spoiler. And it's being held on by all these little Allen heads, and they're all the way down to the other side. So let's get all these Allen heads out and see if we can get this front splitter off. Alright, so we've got this thing taken apart. Got the rocker off of it. You can see this inner structure in here in the quarter panel. It's bent up a little bit, this little plate here. This is pretty thin aluminum, so it moves pretty easy. You can see I can flex it with just pulling on it just a little bit. So this should pull out really easy. Moving to the front up here, this skeleton structure right here is pushed in a little bit. It's got a crack in it right there. Got a small impact to the radiator right there. We're going to have to get that checked out, make sure that we're not leaking or any chance of it leaking. We've also got it bent in right here. Got a small crack here and the initial one that we saw before, the crack there. So we're going to get this pulled out and get it in the shape that it needs to be in so everything's sitting right, and then we'll get those spots welded up. So the way this thing comes apart, it's actually pretty easy. It's not as complicated as I thought it was going to be. These cars are put together to be able to be worked on, so hopefully this thing goes back together as easy as it came apart. We're going to be using this tool right here, and it's called a friction jack, and we're going to be using it to bend these braces back where they're supposed to go. So we're pushing and we're pulling on this radiator support with this friction jack. It's really not going our way. The aluminum is not wanting to bend the way we want it to bend. All the cracks are getting worse and pieces are actually breaking off this thing. So we're going to go ahead and order a new one. And while we're waiting on it to get here, we're going to go ahead and start repairing some of these other panels on this car. Alright, so we've got to repair this splitter. It's got a little piece missing here. You can see what it looks like from the other side. Basically just a little wing looking thing there. So what we're going to do is going to use some tape up a wall right here and spray foam down in here and let it grow, and then we'll shave the spray foam into the shape of the other side. I'll make a template off the other side so I'll know exactly how big or tall it needs to be, and basically shave it and sand it, give it the shape it's supposed to have, and then we'll lay carbon fiber with carbon fiber resin, epoxy resin, over it to make the shape. Alright, so we've got our foam sprayed in there. We're going to let this stuff dry for a very long time, probably overnight. Let it get good and dry, so that way we can start shaving it with a razor blade once it's dry to get the shape we need. Alright, so this is pretty dry. We've given it ample time to get good and as rigid as it's going to get. We're going to take this cardboard off here. We're going to use another piece of cardboard over here. I'm going to make a template off of this side so I know how high to make this side. So get this taken apart, get the template set where I want it to, and I'll get this thing, start trimming it up to the size and the shape that I want, and then we can start laying some carbon fiber on it. Alright, so I've got it shaved to the shape that I want. So what I'm going to do now is take some of these scrap pieces of carbon, get my resin mixed up, and start laying some pieces on here. And I'll let that dry overnight. Alright, so now we've got this carbon fiber on there with the resin. We're going to let this dry, and I can sand off this paper that's on the outside and put another coat of resin on. And we can also dig out this foam and reinforce it from the backside to give it a little bit more strength. But that's basically how we repaired the carbon fiber. So fiberglass.com sells these little sample patches so you can pick which weave you like, and it kind of gives you something to compare it to. And it has this little border sticker around it that kind of holds the weave together. But these little test panels, they work really well for small repairs like this. Now I used a lot of stuff with the sticker on it, which as you can see I took my pocket knife and kind of peeled it off. And any residue that's left on, I should be able to sand it off. That way we're left with a good, just a weave on the outside. Now I'm going to sand off the residue here, kind of shape it up a little bit, and then we'll get this foam out from the inside and we can reinforce it from the back side. Alright, so we've got the inside reinforced and we've got a heat light on it to accelerate the drying process. As soon as it dries, we can work on the aesthetics of the outside of it. Alright, so the back side has been reinforced and the resin is dried. So our next step is to go ahead and sand all the imperfections out of the outside. We'll be cleaning up all the edges, trimming everything off to make it fit right, and I'm not sure how this back edge is going to turn out. Depending on how it looks after I sand it, I might put another layer of carbon when I put the resin on the whole outside, but that'll all determine how well it sands out. So let's get this thing sanded, and then we can put one more coat of resin over the whole thing. Alright, so we've got the last coat of epoxy on this thing, and it flowed out, and it actually looks pretty good. I think it would be alright like it is, but I'm not good at leaving well enough alone, so we're going to sand this thing with some 1200 grit wet paper, and then I'm going to buff it with a little handheld mini buffer and some compound. Alright, so we've got the carbon repair done on this splitter, so now we can start working on some of these other parts that are damaged. We can get the stickers taken all off the car, and let's start sanding on this hood. Alright, so we've got the splitter and the hood repaired. We're still waiting on this radiator support to show up, so let's keep moving forward on the repairs that we can do. What we can do next is go ahead and start getting the metal work done on this quarter panel by getting it as straight as we possibly can. Alright, so we've gone about as far as we can on straightening this aluminum quarter panel on this Ferrari 458. There's a couple spots we need to weld, and we do not have a TIG welder. We've always wanted one around the shop for welding aluminum, welding stainless steel, stuff like that, but we've never really had a need. It's mostly just been a want. So now we have a need, so we're going to go ahead and order it. It should be here about the same time that the radiator support is, and in the meantime, let's go ahead and start repairing this rocker. There's actually a hole in the rocker that we're going to be patching, so let's get on that now. So we just got a box for this 458 from Exotic Auto Recyclers. So let's open this thing up and see what we got. Very cool. Looks like a really nice piece. Actually, looks like a brand new piece. It was packaged well. Let's set up next to the car and compare it. So it's going to sit and replace this piece right here. Basically sit in that same spot. Looks right to me. So we got our new radiator support in. Unfortunately, we ran out of time on this video. So be on the lookout for our next video where I get my TIG welder in and we'll be able to pick up where we left off.
The best way to appreciate your job is to imagine yourself without one.
Alright, so that's going to be about it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, you can hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel and this is the first time that you're ever seeing me, consider subscribing and clicking on the bell icon. That way you won't miss any future content. If you have any thoughts or questions, you can leave it in the comment section down below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. See ya!